Well, welcome to our brand new series, I Choose Peace. We're going to be studying Philippians chapter 4, and I cannot wait. In a world that's in desperate need of peace, I need it, Dave needs it, you all need it. We're just really excited that you would let us in your life group and have some time together. And before we get started and do any review or teaching, Dave, these life groups are really about discipleship. Maybe you could give us a context about how this works together.
Sure. I'm so glad that you guys are meeting together, and our hope is that in these coming weeks, as you dive into Philippians, you're going to get closer to God, also closer to each other, and it's going to bring about some life transformation. In the Great Commission, Jesus said, go make disciples, and that's the calling of the church.
Amen.
As a church, God's called Venture to be a catalytic, relational, disciple-making church.
Yes.
That's what we're about. So simply a disciple is a follower or a learner. And so our heart is that whether this is your first time or you've been doing this for 10 years, that you're going to grow closer to God, that we're followers and learners. Now, for those of you who are brand new, just enjoy the conversation. Hopefully you feel comfortable to join in and participate, but don't feel any pressure. We're not going to put you on the spot or anything like that. For those of you that have been doing this for a while, let me just throw a little challenge out there that it may be time for you to step up and start your own group so more people can be discipled. And if you are interested in that, reach out to me at community@venture.cc. We have a new leader training in February. Love to have you join us. So enough of that sales commercial for starting your own group. But hopefully as you go through this series, you're going to see some fresh insights into God's Word that apply to your life, and your hunger for getting in the Word yourself is going to grow as well. So here's Chip taking us into chapter 4 of Philippians, I Choose Peace.
Therefore, my brothers, you whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, that is how you should stand firm in the Lord, dear friends. I plead with Euodia and I plead with Syntyche to agree with each other in the Lord. Yes, and I ask you, loyal yokefellow, help these women who have contended at my side in the cause of the gospel, along with Clement and the rest of my fellow workers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near.
Well, welcome to I Choose Peace, our teaching segment, and it's just an honor and a privilege to get to share this time with you. And I just want you to pause before we get into this and realize peace really is a choice. Jesus said that He has left us His peace. But left to ourselves, I think a lot of us think that someday, some way, perfect circumstance or the right person or finances get straightened out, that somehow we're going to get peace. And the truth of the matter is that peace really is a gift, but it's also a choice. And in Philippians chapter 4, we're going to see 5 very specific choices that we can make to experience peace. Now, this first one, you've just, read the passage, and you've seen that there's 2 ladies here that they do not get along. There's not peace in this church. There's not peace in this relationship. And it's interesting to me that the scripture is so clear about how do you choose peace in relational conflict. What do you do when you have a problem person in your life? And by the way, big observation, neither of these women are bad. They both love God. They're both used by God. They both have a good relationship with Paul, but for some reason, they don't like each other. They don't get along, and it's big enough that it's causing a division in the church. And so as we get going, it's easy to kind of make this about, the Bible and these 2 ladies. But let me just ask you to ponder, don't make any eye contact right now. But if I ask you, what's a relationship that you really have some conflict? Maybe a little conflict, maybe a lot. Maybe it's at home. That's pretty normal. Maybe it's in the neighborhood, maybe at work. Maybe it's, if you're married, maybe it's with your wife or husband or one of your kids. Maybe, I don't know about you, but in-law situations. There's a guy at the gym, or, there's all kind of situations that you just find yourself in relational conflict. And what we're going to learn is how to choose peace. And for many of you, you have watched the message or you've been at the service and you've heard that. And what I want to do is give you a few coaching tips and begin with a little review. There were 5 specific principles that came out of this passage. What we know is that there's two ladies that don't like each other. We know that they needed outside help. We know that there's a command to rejoice in the Lord, get your focus upward and off this other person. And then I gave you 5 very specific principles. And what I want to do in our time is just go through each one of those, kind of let them sink in, just by way of review. And then I'm going to ask you to be as open and honest. For some, I know it's a brand new group, so there's no pressure. But be as open, as honest as you can be about a problem relationship that's appropriate to share. So with that, like if you happen to be with your mate or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, this is probably not the time to bring out the most difficult thing in your life. But let's walk through these. Number 1, it was resolve to stop procrastinating. We all respond to problem relationships in different way. I like to say there's sharks and there's turtles. I married a turtle, my wife married a shark. When we have a conflict, or when I have a conflict with a person, I want to get up out of my chair, drive to where it is, call them, get down at the table right now. Let's get it resolved. Okay, I'll own my part, you own your part. I just come on like I can't stand unresolved conflict. That doesn't work really well. Sometimes people aren't ready. Sometimes I'm not really ready. And my wife is just the opposite. She tends to be more of a turtle. When there's real conflict, she tends to withdraw. You can imagine the marriage problems we had early on. But here's the deal. You can't procrastinate. Problem relationships, when you bury the hurt, the pain, the resentment, they impact you. As you learned in the message that I gave, there's real problems that can happen even physiologically and other people. And so let's just say, okay, we're not going to procrastinate. We're going to make this our number 1 priority. Second, we said evaluate your expectations. Sometimes we get the idea we're Christians. Everyone should get along. Everyone should like one another. It's normal to not connect as deeply with some people as others. I love one commentator wrote, he talked about militant agreement. And what he was saying is we can really agree to disagree. And there's been some relationships and some people, we're just really different. They're not bad. I don't think I'm bad. I don't connect with them. And part of their personality is a little irritating to me. And mine is obviously irritating to them. But I can agree to disagree on issues. But I agree that I'm not going to reject that person. I'm not going to paint them in a corner and say they're a bad person because they're different. Or even if we disagree, I have some friends that are very far away from me on some theological issues. And I've really learned, you know something? We don't have to agree on all those things. They have some things to teach me. But what I have to do is I have to readjust my expectations. In the Bible, we have these 2 ladies. We've got Paul and Barnabas. There's just times where, everything won't always be smooth. There's not going to be this happy, peaceful, wonderful time all the time. There's going to be some people that are more of a challenge, and God commands us to be forbearance with them. Third is get competent outside help. I tell people, if you have a conflict with a person and you've tried to figure it out 2 or 3 times and you can't, well, then you can't. For some, you need to go to a marriage counselor. For others, maybe sit down with a pastor, or for most, an outside competent person that you both respect to just get it out objectively, but get some outside help. And don't attack one another and say, look, we need help. We're not getting along. And by the way, you don't have to say that you're a Christian. You don't have to come off with any Bible stuff. But if you have conflict at work, maybe it's, let's go talk to our supervisor. Or, let's write out what our differences are, but address these things and get help that you don't have, because what you do and I do in conflict is little by little, the worse it gets, we paint people into a corner, and pretty soon, everything they do is wrong. It gets worse and worse and worse. Fourth is refuse to allow one relationship to ruin your life. Isn't it amazing when we have conflict, and especially if it's an important person, is that it is just our focus. It's our focus. And he says, rejoice in the Lord. There's times where you say, you know what? Am I letting one person? Does this come to your mind when you're driving in the car, when you wake up in the morning, you find yourself praying and this person and this problem? Jesus made it very, very clear there's times when there's a problem between people, and whether you think they're the cause of the problem or you think you're the cause of the problem, in Matthew chapter 5, and then later in a different reason in Matthew 18, Jesus says, basically, I don't care who started the problem. I want you to take the initiative with a humble heart and sit down with the other person. And as far as it depends on you, be at peace. How can we resolve this? And then the final thing was that remember that the right response really is more important than being right. Pretty tough for some of us. So I hope that's given you a review of what you've heard, what you've studied. Here's the question I want you to start with. On a scale of 1 to 10, what level of stress are you experiencing in any problem relationship? So, I mean, if it's like, hey, yeah, I'm glad I came, but all my relationships are great, maybe you're a 1 or a 2. For some, it might be, wow, I'm an 8. And then as appropriate, just take a moment and share, what the number would be and share with the group, this is why. And you're going to find God has you in this room, and their gifts and their experience are going to be one of the biggest answers as you start the discussion and seek the Lord together. See you next time.